Look who finally showed up, the poor cousin and her bargain-hunting mom. My sister-in-law Karen's voice dripped with disdain as my daughter Emma and I walked into the backyard carrying our contribution to the family BBQ. I felt Emma's small hand tighten in mine, but she kept her head high just like I'd taught her. The yard was decorated with expensive outdoor furniture and elaborate table settings, typical of Karen's need to flaunt her wealth. Other family members were already gathered, dressed in what looked like a casual fashion show. Meanwhile, Emma and I wore our simple sundresses from Target, comfortable and practical for a summer BBQ. "Hi, Aunt Karen," Emma said politely, holding up the container of homemade potato salad we brought. "We made Grandma Rose's special recipe." Karen wrinkled her nose, pushing the container away with one manicured finger. "Oh, sweetie, we're having the event catered." "Why don't you put that?" She paused, searching for the right word. "Contribution with the other items on the side table." I watched my daughter's face fall slightly, but she maintained her composure. At 12, Emma had already learned more about dignity in the face of cruelty than most adults. She carefully placed our dish on the designated table, which I noticed was tucked away in a corner, out of sight from the main gathering. "Madison, honey," Karen called out to her own daughter, who was lounging by the pool in a designer swimsuit. "Come show your cousin Emma your new iPhone 14 Pro Max. Maybe she can take a picture with her." "What was it again, Emma?" "A flip phone." Emma smiled, reaching into her small backpack. "Actually, I don't have a phone, Aunt Karen. I'm saving my allowance for something more important." Karen's laugh was sharp and mocking. "Saving? Oh, that's precious. Madison, darling, remember when you used to have to save for things? Before Mommy and Daddy became successful." Madison rolled her eyes, not even bothering to look up from her phone. "No, Mom, we've always been rich, remember?" The other adults at the party pretended not to notice this exchange, but I could see them shifting uncomfortably. My husband Tom, Emma's father, was notably absent, stuck at work again, leaving us to face his sister's subtle cruelty alone. As the afternoon wore on, Karen's comments became increasingly pointed. When Emma offered to help set up the food table, Karen loudly announced that they had professional staff for that. When my daughter tried to join a conversation about summer plans, Karen interrupted to detail Madison's upcoming trips to Europe and her new private tennis lessons. The breaking point came during dinner. Emma was sitting quietly, eating her meal, when Karen decided to make a show of the seating arrangements. "You know," she announced loudly, swirling her wine glass, "maybe Emma would be more comfortable at the children's table. After all, she's still wearing clothes from." She squinted at Emma's dress. "Is that Old Navy?" While the rest of us are trying to maintain certain standards. I started to stand up, ready to finally confront Karen, but Emma's calm voice stopped me. "That's okay, Aunt Karen," she said, smoothing her dress. "I like my clothes, and I'm sure Grandma Rose would have too. She always said it's not what you wear that matters, but what you carry inside." Karen's face tightened at the mention of her mother. Rose, my mother-in-law, had passed away 6 months ago, leaving behind a complex family legacy that was still being sorted out. What Karen didn't know, what none of them knew yet, was that Emma's relationship with her grandmother had been special in ways they couldn't imagine. "Don't you dare mention my mother," Karen snapped, her perfectly composed facade cracking slightly. "What would you know about her? You barely saw her in those last few years." Emma just smiled, the same gentle smile that reminded me so much of Rose. "I saw her every Tuesday after school, Aunt Karen, for tea and stories. She taught me lots of things." Karen's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. "What are you talking about? Mother was at her social club on Tuesdays." "No," Emma said quietly, reaching into her backpack again. "She wasn't." The atmosphere around the table shifted as other family members leaned in, suddenly interested in what my quiet, modest daughter might reveal. Karen's face had lost some of its color, but before Emma could continue, Madison interrupted with a loud complaint about the catering. As the evening continued, I watched Emma with pride. Despite every attempt to shame her, to make her feel less than, she maintained her dignity. She helped clean up without being asked, thanked the catering staff by name, and even offered to share her dessert with Madison, who had been eyeing it enviously. What Karen and the others didn't realize was that Emma's backpack contained more than just her usual modest belongings. Inside was something that would soon change everything, something Rose had entrusted to her. knowing that her youngest granddaughter understood values that money couldn't buy. As we prepared to leave, Karen couldn't resist one final dig. "Don't forget your little container, dear," she called out, holding our potato salad dish like it might contaminate her. "The next time, maybe just bring paper plates. They're more your speed." Emma took the container with a smile that seemed to unsettle Karen slightly. "Thanks, Aunt Karen. And don't worry, next time will be very different." Grandma Rose made sure of that. Driving home that night, I glanced at my daughter in the rearview mirror. "You okay, sweetheart?" Emma nodded, her hand resting protectively on her backpack. "I'm fine, Mom. Grandma Rose always said that the best revenge is patience. And next week, when the lawyer reads her final letter." She trailed off, smiling that knowing smile again. I couldn't help but smile too, remembering Rose's last words to us, and the secret she'd entrusted to my daughter. Karen had no idea what was coming, but she was about to learn that true worth isn't measured in designer clothes or fancy parties. It's measured in character. The week following the BBQ dragged by slowly. Karen had been calling and texting incessantly, suddenly very interested in Emma's Tuesday visits with Rose. Each message became more demanding, more desperate to understand what her mother might have shared with her young niece. "It's time," I said to Emma on Friday morning, watching her carefully pack Rose's leather-bound journal into her backpack. We were heading to the lawyer's office for the final reading of Rose's letter, a document she had specified should be read exactly 6 months after her passing, with all family members present. As we walked into Mr. Peterson's office, the tension was palpable. Karen and her husband sat rigidly in their expensive suits, while Madison slouched in her chair, still glued to her phone. Other family members filled the remaining seats, all curious of this mysterious final meeting. "Where's the little charity case?" Karen muttered as we entered, but her attempt at superiority couldn't mask her obvious anxiety. Emma just smiled and took her seat, the backpack clutched firmly in her lap. Mr. Peterson, Rose's longtime lawyer and friend, cleared his throat. "Thank you all for coming. As per Rose's wishes, we're gathered here 6 months after her passing for a final reading. But before I begin, she requested that Emma share something with the family." Karen's head snapped up. "What? Why should she?" "Because," Mr. Peterson interrupted firmly, "Rose specifically requested it." "Emma?" My daughter stood up, her hands steady as she pulled out Rose's journal. "Grandma Rose asked me to read this first," she said, her voice clear and strong. "It's from our last Tuesday tea together." Karen's face had turned an interesting shade of pale. "Mother was at her social club on Tuesdays," she repeated weakly, but even she didn't seem to believe it anymore. Emma opened the journal and began to read. "My dearest family, if you're hearing this, it means Emma has kept her promise to wait until the right moment. While you all thought I was attending my social club every Tuesday, I was actually spending time with the one person who reminded me of myself at her age, my youngest granddaughter." The room was silent now, all eyes fixed on Emma as she continued. "Every Tuesday for the past 3 years, Hannah would come to my house after school. Not for money or gifts, like some of you might assume, but for something far more valuable: stories, lessons, and understanding." Karen shifted uncomfortably in her seat as Emma turned the page. "She would help me organize my photographs, listen to tales of my childhood, and share her own dreams. While others in this family were busy collecting material wealth, Emma was collecting something far more precious: wisdom." Madison had finally looked up from her phone, her expression confused as she watched her cousin read with such confidence. "Emma never asked for anything except time with me. She didn't care that I wore the same cardigan every Tuesday or that we drank tea from chipped cups. She understood what I've been trying to teach this family for years: that true wealth isn't in your wallet, it's in your heart." Tears were forming in several people's eyes now, but Emma's voice remained steady. "And so, my darling girl, it's time to share our secret, the real reason for our Tuesday teas." Emma reached into her backpack again and pulled out a small wooden box, intricately carved with roses. Karen gasped, recognizing it immediately. "Mother's jewelry box," she whispered, "but we searched everywhere for it after she died." "Because," Emma explained gently, "Grandma Rose gave it to me on our last Tuesday together. Not for the jewelry inside, but for what it represented." She opened the box, revealing not the expensive gems everyone expected, but dozens of folded papers. "Letters," Emma said. one from every Tuesday we spent together. Letters about our family's real history, about the values that built our fortune, and about Grandma's hopes for our future. Mr. Peterson stepped forward then, holding up an official document. And this brings us to Rose's final letter, and her last request. The family fortune, which you've all been so eager to claim, comes with conditions. Karen stood up abruptly. Conditions? What conditions? Mother never mentioned any conditions. Because Mr. Peterson explained, she wanted to see who would reveal their true character before she revealed her true intentions. Emma, would you like to share what your grandmother told you about the family business? Emma nodded, pulling out one final letter. Grandma Rose didn't build this family's wealth by chasing status or putting others down. She built it by helping people, by understanding that true value isn't in how much money you spend, but in how much kindness you share. The letter in Emma's hands trembled slightly as she continued. That's why she made me promise to wait 6 months before sharing her final decision. She wanted everyone to show who they really were, without the influence of her wealth. Karen had sunk back into her chair, her face ashen as the realization of her behavior over the past 6 months, the cruel comments, the public humiliation, the materialistic displays, sank in. The family business, Mr. Peterson announced, will be placed in a trust, managed by a board of directors, who will ensure it continues Rose's legacy of community service and charitable work. The profits will be divided equally among all family members, but with one significant condition. He paused, looking directly at Karen. Each family member must complete 1 year of community service and demonstrate a genuine commitment to the values Rose held dear. Those who choose not to participate will forfeit their share. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Madison's phone slipped from her hand, forgotten. Karen's perfectly maintained composure finally cracked completely. And Mr. Peterson continued, a small smile playing at his lips. Rose appointed Emma as the junior board member to help ensure these values are maintained. She will work alongside me, learning how to manage the foundation's charitable initiatives. Emma finally sat down, her hand finding mine under the table. We watched as the reality of Rose's decision settled over the family. The woman they had dismissed as a social butterfly, too occupied with her club meetings to care about business, had orchestrated a master lesson in values and character. Karen stood up shakily, her designer purse clutched like a shield. This is, she looked at Emma, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time. All those Tuesdays, while I was too busy to visit, you were learning from her, weren't you? Emma nodded. She taught me that being rich isn't about what you have, Aunt Karen. It's about what you give. The room fell silent as Karen's carefully constructed world of material superiority crumbled around her. The poor cousin, the charity case, the girl she had mocked just days ago at the BBQ, had been quietly learning the true meaning of wealth all along. The transformation in our family didn't happen overnight, but the changes over the next few months were remarkable to witness. The first sign came a week after the reading, when Karen showed up at our door, her designer clothes replaced by jeans and a simple blouse. Emma, she said, her voice lacking its usual sharp edge, I was wondering if you would help me understand about the Tuesdays with Mother. My daughter, showing wisdom beyond her years, invited her aunt in for tea. They sat in our modest kitchen, drinking from mismatched mugs, a far cry from Karen's usual fine china. You know, Emma said, opening Rose's journal, Grandma kept notes about everyone in the family. She never gave up hope that you'd remember who you used to be, Aunt Karen. Karen's hands trembled as she accepted the journal. Inside, she found entries about herself as a young girl. Before the money, before the obsession with status. There were photos of a smiling teenager volunteering at animal shelters and stories of a young woman who once dreamed of becoming a teacher. I remember this, Karen whispered, touching a faded photograph. Before I started thinking that designer labels were more important than actually doing something meaningful. The changes rippled through the family. Madison, inspired by her cousin's example, started volunteering at the local library. Her phone appearances became less frequent, replaced by actual conversations. She even asked Emma to help her start a reading program for underprivileged kids. The family BBQs transformed too. The next gathering, hosted at our house, featured homemade dishes instead of catering. Karen brought Grandma Rose's potato salad recipe, her first attempt at cooking in years. It wasn't perfect, but the pride in her eyes when people asked for seconds was worth more than any expensive catered meal. One Tuesday afternoon, I found Karen and Emma sitting together in our living room, going through Rose's letters. "Mother was right," Karen said softly. "I lost my way. I was so busy trying to prove we were better than everyone else, I forgot what actually makes someone worth knowing." The family business flourished under its new direction. The charitable foundation, guided by Emma's insights and Mr. Peterson's experience, began making real differences in the community. Karen, to everyone's surprise, took charge of a new initiative providing business attire and interview training to women returning to the workforce. "You know what's funny?" she told me one day, as we watched Emma and Madison teaching younger kids at the foundation's new after-school program. "I used to think being called the poor cousin was the worst thing in the world. Now I realize that being poor in spirit, in kindness, that's the real poverty." 6 months after the reading of Rose's letter, our family gathered again. This time, it was for the Foundation's first Community Awards ceremony. Emma, standing at the podium in her simple but elegant dress, spoke about her grandmother's legacy. "Grandma Rose taught me that wealth isn't something you show off," she said, her voice clear and confident. "It's something you share." Every Tuesday, she shared her wisdom, her love, and her vision of what our family could be. "Today, we're not just rich in money, we're rich in purpose." Karen, sitting beside me, wiped away tears. Her designer handbag was gone, replaced by a tote filled with foundation documents and project plans. Madison sat on her other side, actually recording Emma's speech instead of scrolling through social media. "The poor cousin," Karen murmured, shaking her head. "I was so wrong. She was the richest of us all, where it really mattered." As I watched my daughter continue her speech, I remembered something Rose had written in her final letter. "True wealth multiplies when we share it. True character shows in how you treat others. And true family isn't about what you have, it's about who you help each other become." Emma ended her speech by announcing the Foundation's newest initiative, the Rose Tuesday program, providing educational support and mentorship to young students. Karen was the first to stand and applaud, her face beaming with genuine pride in her niece. Later that evening, as our family sat together sharing stories and laughter, I realized that Rose's greatest gift hadn't been the money or the business. It had been this moment, watching her family rediscover what really matters, guided by the wisdom she quietly passed down through my daughter's tender heart. The poor cousin had helped make us all richer than we'd ever been before.